Men who select higher value partners do so based upon comparing characteristics between other available women. A woman's mate value relative to other available women, therefore, might be a better predictor of men's mate retention efforts than a woman's absolute mate value. So, in other words, they won't take the woman as is. They won't look at the woman just singly by herself, look at her mate value. No, they like the comparing and the contrasting. That's why you will often hear men say that this woman here is different. I haven't heard a lot of women say about men and their differences, because we oftentimes try to group men into just one category, and especially if it's in a derogatory way, where we're calling them all men are dogs, all men are cheats, things like that, right? But when men find the one that they want to be with long term, that might lead to either long term cohabitation or long term marriage, and someone asks them, why this woman? And he will say, well, she is different from the rest. Now, this is not necessarily what these three authors are suggesting here. I'm just adding that as sort of like, a qualifier. However, what the initial encounter between man and woman, and how men perceive women, is always in comparison or contrast between women. So they won't look at a woman's absolute mate value, take her out on her own. They have to look at her mate value in contrast to others. So it's really men who tend to rank women. I mean, if you go back to the old swimsuit competition days for, Miss America, there was a 10, a 9, a 8, a 7, right? And we don't do that today because it is more offensive. But it's men who say, they base their sort of ability to be effective in the dating market, the sex market, if they can pull a dime piece, a 10, or if they can pull a bad bitch, right? And anyone lower than a 9, they consider lower mate value. So a 7, 8, and they don't even really pay attention to a 5, 6. 5, 6 can basically, give them oral sex or something like that. But a 7, 8 immediately becomes a lower mate value over or under a 9, 10. So pay attention to that, how they think, how they often perceive women in contrast or in comparison to other women. Mate value then is based upon a comparison between characteristics of the person and characteristics of the potential opposite sex partner. So when they are deciding to step out, if a man or a woman decides to step out of the relationship, and it's more so men who do it, unless it's just a type of woman who is very expecting, very privileged, and very entitled, right, in her thinking. But men are the ones typically who usually would do this sort of comparison, and if they are already mated to someone, the person that they are interested in potentially dating, they look at the characteristics of that person in contrast to the characteristics of their current partner. A high value mate is based upon an individual's characteristics as a potential mate on the mating market, what the person believes his or her mate value to be in comparison to others. So you can have self-perceived high value mate, right? You consider yourself a high value mate, and you may have many different contributing factors that you use to sort of validate or suggest or support that contention. because you have long hair, because you have a model's body, because many men have always wanted to date you, and so therefore you qualify yourself as a high value mate. Okay, well then that man will also look at how many types of men, sort of go after you, right? If you're the type of person who can pull, celebrities, a baller or something like that, he's going to look at that and suggest that you are high value as well. And so then there comes a competition, between the high value man that the high value woman is interested in, and then the high value potential alternative that the woman might also be interested in. So high value mate may be self-perceived and socially perceived based upon sort of certain characteristics we tend to attribute to certain types of women. So the highest of the high value mate scale is usually this group consensus about a white woman, blonde, blue-eyed. So then anyone who is not that within that particular racial group, we don't even have to go into the other racial groups. We can just, look at that woman. So then the brunette would be lower value immediately because she is not blonde, blue eyes. And that's why you have a lot of people changing their hair color to increase their mate value and increase their potential on the sex market, on the dating market, right? And then after that, sometimes you might see the brunette competing with the redhead. So just alone in that one sort of racial group, you have three levels of different mate values. If you take it to, say, like the black race, it's always the light-skinned person who is higher value mate. And then on top of her, if there's a light-skinned black woman with sort of curly hair, long flowing curly hair, right? She's on top of the regular light-skinned woman, right? And so we sort of value based upon the hair, the texture of the hair, and the light and the color of the skin. So high value mate can be both self-perceived and socially perceived based upon a group consensus.